Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our cost-saving technology for the industry event number 3, Focus on Data. My name is Sopan, and I'm with our Smart City team, and super excited to be your host for the first half of the event today. Really quickly, let's go over the agenda for the webinar we have today on Thursday. All right, so we have a quick opening remark where we ask my colleague, our COO, Candace Widows, to share a few words with us about our program in general. And then I'm super excited to have our keynote, Frank from Wesco, and we have a quick Q&A with him. We have 2 sections for the startup side. First, focus on data management, and second part, focus on AI and robotic process automation with a Q&A on each section, and we have a quick wrap up. So with that, let me pass it to our COO, Candace Widows. So please take it, Candace.
It's around $150,000 per investment. The second bucket would be corporate innovation. We work with over 400 corporations across 17 different industries and topics to connect startups with business units of large organizations to get technology to market faster. In fact, we built our entire business model around the interests of corporations and our investment strategy as well. In terms of our accelerator programs, that really adds structure to all of our investment and corporate innovation activities that we do. We run 3-month programs twice a year for every topic that we cover. Now, for this COVID-19 initiative, our mission really is to protect the lives and livelihoods of those affected by COVID-19. And we're going to do this by validating and scaling solutions that can restore communities and revitalize economies by connecting innovative technology with our platform partners. And when we talk about our platform partners, of course, it involves startups. We have over 20,000 startups in our database, our corporate partners. We also work with nonprofits and foundations, venture capitalists, governments, and universities. We break the COVID-19 initiative into 4 different tracks. The first would be health, the second would be supply chain, the third would be enterprise technology, and the fourth would be the commerce track. Now for the health track, we're looking at everything from mental health, symptom checkers, prevention solutions, telemedicine. I was speaking with somebody recently who had a dental emergency, and he had a video call with his dentist to get referred to an oral surgeon. And his dentist remarked, this would have never happened a few weeks ago. With all the regulatory shifts that are happening, now is a really good time to implement new technology. We have been all dramatically, deeply affected by this. And so now is the time to implement technology solutions that have always been there, but we haven't been quite ready to implement. Looking at our enterprise tech track, technologies such as intelligent process automation, dealing with compliance. A lot of businesses are having to wade through the bureaucracy of getting government aid. What are the technology solutions that can aid in that? Looking at upskilling and reskilling our workforce. It could be baggage handlers for an airline, could find other positions at delivery or other areas in the more essential economy right now, as all of these industries are being deeply affected, in particular the travel industry right now. Looking at the supply chain and industrial verticals, looking at things like computer vision to monitor social distancing management. This could be in a factory setting, or warehouse, or even an emergency room, waiting room. Looking at consumer signals, a number of our business partners are seeing softening demand, or at least dramatically shifting demand. How do we improve that demand forecast planning? Looking at fulfillment and last mile delivery solutions. And finally, our commerce track, where we're combining the verticals that have been hardest hit by this crisis, our retail, travel, looking at financial solutions as well. So, these could be things like keeping furloughed workers engaged, looking at technologies that can help banks lend to small and medium businesses who desperately need liquidity right now, looking at contactless payments, looking at what is the new normal when we get back into restaurants and retailers. How are we changing the orientation of the layout to maximize social distancing? Now, over the next 6 months, we're working with our platform partners, and we're looking for a select few of what we call pilot partners. And these are the ones that we want to really dig our hands in the soil and work with our startups to get new technology solutions that protect the lives and livelihoods of those affected by COVID-19 to market faster. And again, we want to validate them by working with our partners and then scale them. You can find all of this content on our website at pmptc.com/COVID-19. There you can also find an application site. So if you're a startup, you're a foundation, you're a government, you're a corporation, please do apply there. Or you can reach out directly to me at candace@pmptc.com. Thank you so much for your attention. Please enjoy the rest of this event.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Candace. So also very quickly, why we do cost saving, and this is event number 3. So from the corporate side, it's very obvious the primary concern for the industrial sector in this period of global uncertainty to cut costs. And from the startup side, by bringing innovation to corporation, the goal is to reduce costs and increase efficiencies. So that's why we do these cost saving events. And the quick recap of the sessions that we had so far. And next slide. We had 2 of them in April. The first one was focused on operations and second one focused on automation. For today, the focus is on data, basically having API and AI, robotic process automation to make legacy system more efficient by gathering insight from the data. So this was a quick recap of the last 2 sessions that we have and the focus for today. And also as a natural progress moving forward with reopening manufacturing factories and facilities, our team put together a great ebook that if the team can share it, perfect. So you can see the QR code here. This is a great ebook that you can download. You can find it on our LinkedIn. You can find it on our website. And you can also take a quick picture from the QR code here. Especially with reopening manufacturing, super interesting to look at the startups that we have here and technologies to help you moving forward. And also next slide. Very quick housekeeping. So obviously, if you're not presenting, please stay on mute. And if you have any question, please submit your question on the Q&A button in the bottom of your Zoom window. And for each presentation, for the keynote, we have 10 minutes time for Q&A. And for the startup presentation, we have 2 minutes. Wonderful. So I'm super excited to have our keynote speaker from Wesco International, Frank LaPlante, VP of Digital Transformation IoT. So basically, Frank is a technology strategist with more than 20 years of experience in global B2B operational technology and information technology markets. As a vice president, IoT and digital transformation as Wesco Distribution, Frank is responsible for driving the worldwide digital transformation for a Fortune 500 multinational electronics distribution and service company. Frank is adept at predicting how emerging technology, particularly IoT, artificial intelligence, and digital transformation will impact us both professionally and personally. With that, Frank, super excited to have you here today with us.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to be here as well today. Very quickly, I'm going to give a quick overview of Wesco. I'm not going to read this. I'm sure all of you can read, but I think what's interesting to point out about Wesco is, first of all, we're over 100-year-old distribution company, electrical distribution. As a matter of fact, Wesco stands for Westinghouse Electrical Supply Company. Back in the day, Wesco used to be the captive distribution arm for Westinghouse. So we've been around for a long while, and the key thing to understand about Wesco, there's 2 key points, is our embedded customer base is very much in the factory, industrial, end customers globally. And number 2, we find ourselves in the middle of a huge transformational part of our business. So imagine a very conservative, old brick and mortar distribution company in the digital age. So the key takeaway of anything is we view ourselves at a really unique perch in the industry at a very unique time. So as the distributor that is servicing many end customers in the industrial space and IT space globally, we're able to see upstream and downstream from virtually every type of supplier, consultant, software organization out there, and then a direct downstream view and daily engagement with all the end customers across every type of vertical you can imagine. So from that perspective, we have a really unique view of the world and a really unique ability to kind of see things real time as they develop. And as you'll hear during my presentation, that's putting us in a unique position also to be able to very quickly respond given things as they change, and they certainly have in the past 2 months. So to kick off the overall discussion, I only have 10 minutes. And by the way, this is something I could literally talk for 6 hours on, because things are changing so rapidly and there's so many unknowns out there, and there's so much thirst for knowledge and direction across all facets of business and our personal lives. But with the 10 minutes I have, I just want to kind of give you an overview of what we're seeing as a distributor with visibility both upstream and downstream to all the customers, how we've seen COVID-19 impact everything as far as how we do business, how we go about things, what customers are asking for, and most importantly, what we're able to do in really short order to help address those. So what's important to note is if I was giving this discussion 2 months and 2 days ago, think about that. It was literally 2 months ago yesterday when effectively the United States shut down. So if I was giving this talk about distribution in the digital age 2 months ago, it would have been 180 degrees different. Right now, what we've seen is an acceleration on a necessity on so many fronts. Some of it's scary, but some of it is also very telling as far as where we see the industry and world going and where we think the end result is going to be, or at least the evolution, and where all of us on this call can play. So we've also found very interesting, there's a lot of perception on what distribution is and what it isn't in today's digital age with the Amazon effect and everything. What we were able to find very uniquely as being a distributor with logistics and warehouse and feet on the street capabilities does have a very legitimate and critical play in today's world. And I'll give you some examples of that. So observations, what have we seen in the past 2 months? Well, first off, we will never return to normal. I don't mean to make that sound draconian or fear harboring or harbinger of doom, but I will say that life as we knew it prior to the COVID-19, as it, obviously in our personal lives, but specifically in B2B and industry, will never return to normal, and that's not a bad thing. Here's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing our biggest and most strategic end customers, very much in the industrial space, trying to balance safety for their employees with a cautious and thoughtful return to business and opening up of their facilities. And the issue that we're hearing over and over again is there's no right way to do this because virtually every situation is different. The second thing we're noticing overnight virtually is very large strategic end customers, again, a lot of times in the industrial space, food and paper and pulp, food and beverage, particularly industrial factory floor. They're realizing right now how vulnerable their business is to threats that they had no idea were out there. For example, right now, they're realizing that they have to look at their business completely differently when you take the human element out of it. When they realize that you take the physical humans that are running the factories, running the plants, the critical need to now have some type of cross collaboration of the human element, but some type of remote, ongoing monitoring and control and analytics so that in the future, they're not completely beholden to the human element. So interesting thing, that is the third point, is having done this for a while, speaking to a lot of manufacturers and end customers, we're hearing over and over when we're trying to talk about the digital journey and automating their factory and connecting all the devices, the two primary elements that came up all the time were, it sounds like a nice to have, number one, I don't see the ROI yet, and number two, I really don't want to put my entire business at risk due to cybersecurity threats. Almost overnight, those two concerns have fallen to the back seat. Right now, they're saying, I need to get my factory, I need to get my plant back up and running. I need to do so effectively. I need to keep my employees as safe as possible. And I need to make sure that in the future, I have a system that is going to protect my critical assets and my entire foundation of my business. So if something like this happens, I have the remote automated ability to continue functioning as a business. So that is literally a light switch that we've seen go off. We're very conservative, resistant, and customers are now saying, even when we get out of this, and we will get out of this, I need to rethink how I'm deploying my digital automation strategy throughout my entire facility. So going on to the next point, which is related to, is right now what we're getting is a tremendous influx of customers now coming to us and saying, okay, you need to tell me what I need to start doing now to stop the bleeding, literally with like, how do I get my business back up and running? But more importantly, help me start on my journey towards how to automate my business. So again, I'm protected down the road and can balance the human element of safety as well as keeping my business running profitable on an ongoing basis. So here's some examples of what we're seeing specifically, and I'm going to tie this into the plug and play group because it's been absolutely essential. So previously, as a distributor, if there was some type of emerging customer need that popped up, that there wasn't a readily available solution in the marketplace from a supplier or from a software perspective, it would be a 2 to 3 year long, laborious process to go and talk to suppliers, maybe even try to create it in-house, create a solution, and ultimately try to get it back to the industry. And by that time, often the need had passed or someone else had filled it. What we've seen happen right now is there is immediate needs where customers don't have a choice and there are no solutions out there. So what we have done, and I'm going to give you 2 or 3 core examples out of necessity from our core customers asking for help, is we've had to pivot on a dime, get way out of our wheelhouse and start doing things that previously were unheard of in the distribution world and in our customer world, and how we've actually been able to help them get back to somewhat normalcy. So here's an example. So there is a very, very large, can't name the company, a poultry processing company that Wesco is a large partner with. They obviously it's a critical need to keep the food supply chain running to get out to the world. Yet they had high infection rates of COVID-19 with their plant workers. So they were struggling with how do they safely open up their plant, keep the supply chain and food going to the world, but do so in a way that's thoughtful and protecting their employees. So we found out that they had shifts, and every time there was a shift turnover, there was 200, 300 workers all filing in through a single door or multiple doors, all wearing masks with no way to validate their health or their safety. So right now, we realized we needed to go and have some type of thermal imaging, some type of temperature monitoring from a remote mass perspective to go out there and at least allow us to segment 30 at a time, pull out any individual that had heightened temperature or heightened body thermal imaging, do proprietary testing on them to make sure that they were safe and did not infect others. So right away, we went and deployed our ecosystem research with Plug and Play to say, we need this type of technology in this type of environment, and we need it immediately to get out to deploy. So in working with, in the course of 48 hours, we had multiple solutions that were readily available that did this exact type of thing that we were then able to get back in front of this customer to talk about and help deploy. Another example, I think we had mentioned earlier today about the impact this has had on retail and on grocery and pharmacy. We have a very large string of grocery/pharmacy customers that had customers that needed to get their critical prescriptions but could not enter the facility. So in very short order, we helped with the Plug and Play team find a way to have cameras that did analytics, license plate recognition, which would allow this chain to actually have cars drive up, trigger an alert. The surveillance would show who was coming in. They were the grocery store was actually able to text them immediately saying, pull into slot 27. We will be out with your prescription in 5 minutes. Why is that important? Number one, that was not a technology this company was even dreaming of 2 months ago. But number two, now that they have seen it and have deployed it, this will be business as usual for them moving forward, meaning that they realize that moving forward, there is going to be a mandate for safety. There is going to be a mandate for better efficiency. So moving forward, they're now going to deploy this as a best practice for how they run their business moving forward. Last thing that we've worked with Plug and Play, which has been, again, immediate and immediately beneficial to specific customers, is when you're looking at construction sites, when you're looking at very congested factories, you need to be able right now to validate that social distancing requirements are in place and that there are no infractions. You need to be able to look at employee foot traffic on construction sites, and you need to be able to monitor critical assets like respirators in hospitals to make sure that all of these things are in compliance as we reopen the world. So we worked with the Plug and Play team again in the course of, I would say, 3 days, and had technologies that we were able to go and talk to our actual customers to say, let's consider doing a pilot here that will send mobile alerts, for example, for all employees where they are on a construction site. We'll send off and trigger alarms if we see any type of thermal ranges that are out of whack, or if we see employees congregating too close together, which obviously would cause an issue with local municipalities. My whole point, by the way, I've got 15 different other examples that 2 months ago didn't exist. My point here is what we've learned and what we think is going to be the new normal is there is a absolute light switch that has gone off with the community now realizing that the automation of our world, of our homes, of our factories, of our buildings is no longer a nice to have. It's no longer something that, you know, people will consider as something they should do. And now they're realizing it is an absolute essential. It's the fourth utility. You need to have everything connected. Yes, you need to have security. Yes, you need to maintain the privacy concerns with your employees. But right now, the safety, the visibility, and the remote monitoring and management of your assets and your people will be a requirement moving forward. And I can honestly stand here today and say, had we not had the engagement with the startup community, the plug and play, and the corporate partners, by the way, the corporate partners we've talked to about this to make sure we're not creating any silos has been absolutely influential and instrumental in how we've addressed this. So in conclusion, here's what I'm going to say. Number one, the world will not go back to normal. Number two, kind of like the space program back in the late 60s created a bunch of technologies that didn't actually make it into the space program, but became technologies utilized around the globe. That's what we see happening right now. The technologies that are being developed out of necessity overnight will be the standard moving forward, and the ability to respond with quickness and specificity, which we're now able to do, will be the new normal. Time and speed to market is essential, like I just said. And then I just want to leave you with this, is distribution has, depending on who you talk to, people have different opinion on it. Number one opinion people have is, what value does distribution bring in a digital world? You know, what value are they bringing by having product and getting it to people? Well, what we've learned today is because we are not tied to any specific product or production line, like I said, we have the ability to touch customers on a daily basis, work with the supplier community, and immediately go back and pivot as we need to and literally change our business model to get the right solutions, technology, and logistics out literally overnight. So I would just ask everyone on the call to think about distribution out there a little bit differently. And I'm talking all distribution, small, regional, HVAC distribution. There is a play there in the digital world, and it's something that I would urge us all to look at as a critical part of the ecosystem in this changing and evolving world. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and turn it back over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frank. I think for the future events, maybe we should give you like more time. You had so many good points to talk about. We have a few questions here. So with the new world that we have right now, what are some spaces where you're more excited to work with the startups? What are some areas where you wish you saw more founders building products?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we're seeing right now is what used to be called security surveillance is now becoming ubiquitous. So I would say right now, the use of video and the software analytics are going to be an absolute key function of virtually every application that we can see, from production to employee safety to facial recognition. So I would just throw that out there, that it's no longer, video cameras no longer security applications. Surveillance is something that is going to be a pivotal explosion across virtually all verticals. And your second question, I'm sorry, was what?
So what are some areas where you wish you saw more founders building products?
Yeah, you know what, the biggest needs we're hearing right now are critical real-time asset tracking, employee safety and tracking, and the ability to understand where people and assets are at any given time. And then also the ability from a factory floor perspective to make sure that there's some type of standardized platform that can tie in all the different suppliers' equipment and all the different dashboards into a single unified monitoring and analytics platform. So I would say those areas right there.
Awesome. And you also mentioned that we're not going back to the kind of previous life that we had. What changes do you see staying post-COVID-19, both the good changes and new challenges?
Yeah, like I mentioned in my too long discussion, my apologies. I see an acceleration of the connecting of the world, of the automation, of the, I think what would have taken probably 2 years, I think people right now are really scrambling to figure out how do they better automate their business to protect it if and when, God forbid, something like this happens again. They can't be 100% reliant on the human element to keep their businesses running. What concerns me a little bit is I don't know what the impact of the new normal is going to have on just how we conduct business. For example, are we going to be able to actually go and have face-to-face discussions with, our most important customers and clients? Is this going to be the new normal of us doing everything via web conference? But I think, honestly, I'm a believer in significant change like this will always drive opportunity. And I really do believe the silver lining here is this is going to force all of us to accelerate what needs to happen anyway, which is a more connected world with higher centralized visibility and the ability to actually control and monitor employees and critical assets from a remote perspective.
Amazing. And maybe last question, Frank, you briefly touched on construction examples. How has this situation affected the relationship with GCs? Working closer together as a result, increased communication, or what's that?
Yeah, the digital or smart construction industry, as you well know, is a virtually unchanged market for about 100 years. So right now, as these technologies are starting to become available and the GCs are starting to see the types of digital technologies they can put on top of their existing systems, like I mentioned previously with the tracking of the employees, the having actual tags on their employees from a safety and tracking perspective, this has been something, again, that I think is also going to accelerate what was already starting to happen. So they absolutely now are embracing and seeing the value of the digital connected construction site. So we've seen more activity in the past 2 months than probably we have in the past 2 years, just based on the new normal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frank. I think we've passed 2 minutes from our time, but I wanted to ask you here if you can promise us to come back for future events that we have. Really enjoyed having you here and sharing your thoughts and the situation that we have right now. So if you can promise us you come back, would be wonderful. And thank you so much for being with us today.
You got it. And I promise I'll keep to my time frame as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great day. And with that, I want to pass it to my colleague, Addison Honeycutt from our ventures team to introduce their startups. Addison.
Thanks, Soban, for that introduction, and Frank for such an insightful discussion. Well, we definitely want to keep things moving here, so we're going to jump straight into some startup presentations with a few startups focused on data management. So to kick things off, we have Shane from OpenLegacy.
Hello, my name is Shane Kentz. I'm the General Manager of OpenLegacy's North American business. OpenLegacy is an API design platform that focuses specifically on the ability to access legacy assets, source systems of record like mainframe, iSeries, Oracle, SAP, and others. And we focus entirely on the design process with the ability to run and execute in runtime anywhere and any place, on the cloud, in-prem, or hybrid. But focusing specifically on the design side of things allows us to drive incredible value and impact across the entirety of the organization. We start from day one, the business requirements, and ultimately step one. And then working through the entirety of the design process and all of the various people, resources, stakeholders, and parts of the organization that ultimately have to touch the API before it can be placed into production, from design, build, testing, and across the entirety of the process. Breaking down silos, automating steps and activities, eliminating frequencies of back and forth through templating and the code generation process. The impact is 10 to 20 times faster API creation, the ability to reduce the entirety of the labor hours associated with the design through deploy process by 75%. And because of the OpenLegacy architecture, the ability to deliver 5x greater latency performance impact. One recent financial services organization results in impact clearly demonstrates the value of the platform. The current baseline to actually go through the entirety of the process based off of their reporting and actual manager estimates, 1,123 hours, 7.9 months in terms of calendar time. Leveraging the OpenLegacy architecture and software platform, able to deliver the same like for like in 152 hours and 4 weeks. That's the value of setting up an API platform factory. And from a bottom line cost perspective, you can see the current cost per API, $128,000, leveraging the OpenLegacy architecture and software design platform, $18,000. And so how are we able to do that? Essentially, we've constructed a software platform that allows you to go direct to the legacy asset, mainframe, iSeries, SAP, Oracle, etc., to completely decouple it from the current monolith and structure, leveraging the SDK and the API microservices path. The power of this overall architecture is the fact that it allows you to modularize, componentize the entirety of the legacy tech stack, going direct to the system of record and automatically generating these aspects delivers the speed and the results that we talked about above. Bottom line is the OpenLegacy platform allows you to create modern and standard APIs in hours versus months, non-obtrusive to the legacy source system, no changes to core applications, automation development process and code generating and templating, no proprietary runtime, no standard approach to Java and DevOps methodologies applies to all, very flexible, you have access to the code, and it's all about modularizing and decoupling that enables the types of results that we talked about. Thank you, and we look forward to sharing more and answering any questions you have about the OpenLegacy platform.
That was great. And I think we have Shane on the line here to answer some questions. Shane, how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we already have some questions coming in. I'm curious, you mentioned immediacy as one of your product advantages. How do you integrate security checks in the process?
Well, actually, what we do as part of the building the API factory, there's a significant templating aspect to it. And so we're able to actually template anything from NFRs, nomenclature, anything that you would want to be a part of the overall API in terms of the output that would ultimately end up in production. And a key component of that is often security patterns. And so the security patterns that are required as part of the, to pass governance and security compliance, we actually template and bake it into the code generation process to ensure that it's actually delivered as a part of every single API.
Awesome, very cool. And do you mind, based on our audience here today, do you have any case studies in the industrial manufacturing space that you can share?
So from the industrial manufacturing space, typically what the use cases are a combination of, let's say, Oracle and SAP, where you have two disparate systems of record, but they're both provide critical information to, let's say, maintenance or to the floor operations. And ultimately, it's time consuming to have to access from different applications and different touch points. And so what our platform allows is to put in place the modularizing of the legacy source system from both stored procedures across Oracle or SAP BAPIs, bringing them into a single overall microservice or API and providing that single point of contact, single point endpoint for applications. So that's a typical use case in the manufacturing environment.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And unfortunately, that's all we have time for in terms of questions today, but we appreciate you joining us. Hope you have a great rest of the day and maybe can get to some of these other questions in the Q&A box as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time. Take
Awesome.
care.
Thank you. And to keep moving right along, our next startup here will be presented by Lucas from SpareTech.
Welcome to the digital world of industrial spare parts. Welcome to SpareTech. Let's begin with a real-life example. If you pick a random contact out of your address book, chances are high that you might have missing information for the name or address, that the date of birth might not be listed, changes over the course of the past years might not have been implemented. Therefore, contacting the person after a long time might be a challenge due to missing relevant information. This example perfectly illustrates the importance of clean master data in the context of industrial spare part management. Without clean master data, implementing the vision of a smart factory is basically impossible. A recent customer experience illustrates how a defective pneumatic cylinder that's actually worth 120 euros was causing a downtime of more than 100,000 euros. It was specifically annoying because the spare part was actually in stock, but couldn't be found due to incorrect product data information in the ERP system. Industrial spare part management today is a perfect example in most companies where high CapEx and OpEx can be found. Duplicates and discontinued products are not only causing high inventory levels, but potential downtime risks. Purchases via machine OEMs instead of direct sourcing from manufacturers might cause procurement extra costs, and the manual effort to maintain and create data is significantly high. If you multiply these challenges with the number of factories in your global production network, it becomes obvious that the lack of harmonization at a global scale is a multi-million business opportunity. Therefore, SpareTech has implemented a solution to solve this challenge. Our cloud software connects all sites and allows standardized data creation to create the best possible master data for your spare parts possible. Our software features live duplicate checks, a global search engine to always find the right and best part, as well as sourcing optimization and inventory analysis. The SpareTech solution is based on automated data processing and smart matching algorithms. Within the first year of the company, partnerships with global leading manufacturers for automation technology, such as Siemens and Festo, were built in order to create a reliable and comprehensive product database that provides always up-to-date and 100% clean master data to all end customers. Thereby, significant CapEx and OpEx reductions can be realized through SpareTech. This includes inventory reductions by 21%, reduced downtime risks by 45%. Also, procurement costs can be reduced by 7% in average, and importantly, manual work can be reduced by 47%. Contact us to learn more and to schedule your appointment with Lucas to set up your free trial today. Thanks for watching.
Awesome. And I think we actually have Lucas here with us today. Lucas, are you on the line?
Absolutely. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Perfect. Well, we already have a few questions coming in today, Lucas. The first being, do you interface with any specific ERP systems?
Well, our solution is not limited to only Oracle or IBM or SAP solutions. So with regards to interfaces, we are indeed very flexible.
Awesome. Awesome. And what's it like to onboard a new customer to your platform? What is that process like?
Yeah. So basically what we do is that the simple thing you need to do is to export basically your actual data from your ERP system. We simply spoken dump it into our matching algorithms, come up with a quick check to give you a quantified return on investment assumption so that you can make a perfect judgment call how many user licenses you would need and so on. The whole process takes around to onboard a new customer 2 to 4 weeks. And yeah, that's basically how it works.
Awesome. And maybe one more quick question. You mentioned a few customers in your presentation. Could you share a case study where your platform has already been implemented?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are very happy to not only work with automotive companies such as Porsche, but specifically in these times with also healthcare providers like Wepa, who basically have used our software in their global production network to harmonize their master data globally after post-merger integrations, different standards all around the globe, to not only have a more resilient internal supply chain when it comes to spare part sharing within the Wepa group, but also when it comes to bundling procurement volumes and negotiating for future prices.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, but we appreciate you joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. And now we're actually moving into the second half of the event, which is focused more on artificial intelligence and robotic process automation. So to kick off that portion, we have Avinash from Scan.ai.
Hello there. My name is Avinash, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Scan.ai. Scan helps map, model, and manage the invisible enterprise. What is the invisible enterprise? Between what an organization thinks is its business process and what is actually happening on the ground. Between the boxes and arrows diagrams at level 1, level 2 that describe processes and the standard operating procedures, and what's actually happening in the innumerable exceptions, nuances, and decisions that human beings are taking with digital tooling lies the invisible enterprise. It is critical that we know that. But the reason we do not know about it is because we use human discovery to be able to figure out these business processes. This act of human interviews actually does not work. It does not work because there is a tacit dimension of knowledge, that human beings know more than they can tell. And always, when we ask someone what is it that they do in a given situation, the answer is not what they do, but the answer is what they're supposed to be doing. And so, large part of what an organization thinks is its business process is simply not true. You'd say, well, that's all very well, but why do we care? We care because we do not want to be a statistic on a page like this. Enough blood, sweat, and tears have already been spent on digital transformation that was not quantified and depended on anecdotal evidence. Scan aims to change that. We change it by using computer vision, which is where the digital rubber hits the digital road, which is where all decisions are seen on the screen. We use computer vision to observe the screens at scale across the organization to be able to figure out what the business process is. We do not require access to your backend systems. We do not require access to any data or logs. We use information on the screen, and using computer vision, we figure out what the business process looks like. There is no human discovery, and therefore we can easily go beyond the happy path descriptions of work. And because this is a data-driven description of work, we can simulate, we can interrogate, we can automate these processes. So Scan, we deploy tooling on each of the desktops where work is happening, and we use the information on the screen to capture information, much like a WebEx or a Zoom would, and use that to be able to build out process twins, not just on the work of one person, but of the many people who are working in the organization. Using this information, we are either able to provide supervisory AI or data-driven re-engineering and transformation that then dovetails into digital transformation agendas of the organizations. So what is it that Scan can do for the enterprise? One, it can help understand and optimize before you make digital interventions based on data. And second, after the digital intervention has been made, and that intervention may be automation or change in tooling or retraining of people, monitor and manage the impact, again, on a data-driven basis, not based on interviews. So Scan does not automate. Scan drives continuous compliance and risk using supervisory AI. Scan benchmarks work, provides precision training, and Scan is being used for process mapping and compliance in claims management, in automation and application rationalization, in compliance and due diligence, and in optimization and transformation at large organizations. Feel free to reach out to us at www.scan.ai. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that presentation. And I believe we have Avinash on the line. How's your day going so far, Avinash?
It's going very well. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me here.
Awesome, of course. Well, we actually have some questions already coming in, so I guess I'll kick it off with, does using a computer vision-based solution create any privacy issues?
Well, that is a valid concern, and it comes up all the time. And we've worked exceptionally hard to make sure that we create what we call as inclusion and exclusion lists of applications that either belong to the business process or do not, right? So if a person, let's say, as part of their work, is going to Facebook, and Facebook is not part of the business process, then we do not capture it, right? The second thing is that even within the applications where business is happening, there may be sensitive information, and we are able to predict what is sensitive information and redact that at source. So a combination of redaction of information from the screen and not capturing things that are not part of the business process is the solution to privacy issues here.
Awesome, awesome. And we have another question coming in around how many of these workers' computers need to be online for your system to be effective. Is there a critical mass of the organization that makes this work?
That is quite right. So there is a critical mass, and you need to have at least a diverse portion of the workforce, a certain portion of the workforce. But typically we see around 20 to 30 people in a 100 people process would be good enough that within a 2-week window, you're able to get to all the nuances and the exceptions that are running in that business process.
Awesome. And I think, unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but we have some more questions coming in. If you want to check those out in the Q&A box and maybe respond to a few of those. But I appreciate you taking the time today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having us. Thanks. Bye.
Awesome. Awesome. And we're actually going to move on now to our final startup of the day. For this, we have Freddie from Automation Hero.
Hello there. My name is Freddie, and I'm head of strategic partnerships at Automation Hero. Automation Hero is a backend and AI-based intelligent process automation platform for the enterprise. Now, you might be familiar with the term RPA, or Robotic Process Automation. That technology is about 15 years old, and it is really used to automate simple tasks as part of a larger process by mimicking a user's behavior on the front end of a desktop. Now, so it can be really easily compared with a welding robot, what you see on the left. It's a very static structure and does one specific task a lot of times with a high accuracy and a high reliability. However, as soon as an external variable is changing, that robot doesn't know what to do anymore, and the automation is breaking apart. On the other hand, you have technologies of IPA, or Intelligent Process Automation, where we add cognitive abilities to really enable AI-based decision-making. And if you look at how Automation Hero is positioned in the market, you will understand that we are right at the intersection between RPA, artificial intelligence, big data and data manipulation, and the human. Let's look at some of our use cases. At Automation Hero, we generally differentiate between 3 different use case categories. And number 1 is eliminating repetitive tasks. And here we're using AI-based optical character recognition, or OCR models, to automate purchase order fulfillment processes in an end-to-end fashion. Here we work with one of the largest energy companies in the world to process 35,000 purchase orders per month. We further process invoices in an end-to-end manner, and really all sorts of processes that include the understanding of handwritten text. Use case category number 2 is automating common customer requests. We see this very frequently in the front office processes of large enterprises, where we use intent detection models to understand the intent of incoming customer communication via email, for example. And we can use dark data extraction models to extract certain entities from an incoming email and then use it further downstream in an automation. A third use case here is claim processing, where we are helping one of the largest global manufacturers to cluster their incoming machine claims in a very scalable way. Use case category number 3 is augmenting knowledge worker decision-making. Here we help large companies to optimize their demand, to better plan their workforce, and also to simply just use prediction and reinforcement learning models to predict a best next customer scenario for B2C sales. Now let's look at the technology. Automation Hero is really built around our fast data processing engine. That's really the core of it, while we focus on 4 pillars. Number 1 being data. We come with 60 plus pre-built connectors to the most standard and most common database sources, including all structured as well as unstructured data sources. Now the second pillar is really systems, where we integrate with all sorts of ERP systems, with CRM systems such as Salesforce, as well as Workday or ServiceNow. Pillar number 3 is processes, where we integrate with business process management tools or existing RPA vendors that a customer is already using. And pillar number 4, very important for us, is people, where we have built a virtual assistant that is looping the human back into the end-to-end automation experience. Now let's look at the actual product. This is our Flow Studio, which is our automation designer, where we allow customers in an end-to-end fashion click together their own automations with no single line of code written. For that, we use about 200 functions or operators. Our secret sauce, however, is really AI Studio. Here we allow customers to do one of 2 things: either upload an existing model and to really help them operationalize their AI across the entire enterprise, or allowing them to simply click together their own AI model, and this can be anything from intent detection model to prediction model to an OCR model as well. Now, the third functionality that I quickly want to touch upon is Hero Sonar. That is our newest release of functionalities dealing with the overall topic of process mining that we now also have embedded and integrated in our platform. In the end, I would like to summarize our differentiators. We are a true end-to-end automation platform with natively embedded AI models, no matter if it's an OCR model, intent detection, prediction classification, or a handwritten recognition model. And we have integrated our virtual assistant, Robin, that is personifying the automation experience for the business user. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm now happy to take your questions.
Great. Thanks, Freddie. And I think we have you on the line to answer some questions. How's your morning going?
That's correct. Having a good morning here in San Francisco. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we do have some questions coming in. The first being, is SpareTech limited to the automotive industry, or do you support other industries like apparel and textiles as well?
I think this is still for the former presenter from SpareTech.
Oh, for SpareTech. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Of course. Well, let me just move on to the next question that's actually for you then. Can you further explain your data extraction and storage methodology? Do you foresee any security or privacy issues around that?
Not sure if I understand the question 100%, but essentially data extraction, I mean, there's two ways, right? We either use our AI models, and this again can be anywhere, anything from OCR or really dark data extraction from large amounts of text, or when we extract or just take data right out of the database, we have a connector system that consists of 60 plus connectors where we easily integrate with all sorts of really structured and unstructured database formats, MongoDB, MySQL, NoSQL, JDBC, etc. Why are we very good in what we do here? We have collected core competencies here for the last 20 years around the founding team of Hadoop, and also the company that was the big data analytics leader on a global scale, Datamir.
Awesome. So it seems like this application can apply to a lot of industries. What industries are you currently targeting as collaboration partners? For sure.
So big target is logistics space, as well as the insurance. So really a lot of just industries that have a lot of still manual processes, which essentially is all the industries, right? We're more and more moving into the automotive space, where one of the largest engine manufacturers, and that's the example I mentioned in the presentation, is currently using our tool in an end-to-end way to just cluster incoming machine claims, for example. So we see more traction in the automotive space as well.
Awesome. And maybe one last question about your solution. Can you explain the role of the virtual assistant and how that fits into the flow?
For sure. The virtual assistant is pretty much our way of doing an intended automation, and really the human in the loop, where you can imagine every time an AI model is extracting information from either a document or a piece of text, we can route that extracted data to the business user, use our virtual assistant that we call Robin, and essentially have the business user kind of edit or correct that extracted information. And the beautiful thing with having our virtual assistant in the loop and integrated in the platform, we can use that feedback from the business user when he made an edit and loop that back into retraining the AI model to make the AI model and the quality and the accuracy getting better and better over time.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. We appreciate you joining us today and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Edison. You as well.
Thanks so much. Fabulous. Well, just to close out for everyone here, I have a few final notes to let you know. The first is that our summer summit this year is going to be all virtual. We want to make sure you save the dates. That's going to be the week of June 15th. So there will be 3 days full of startup presentations and different exciting industry presentations. The second 2 things are on the screen in front of you now. For anyone who missed that ebook download link, it's both in the chat box and you can use the QR code here to learn more about reopening your manufacturing facilities. Also, if you want to see any more of these virtual COVID-19 events, we do have a website entirely dedicated to that, and that's the second QR code on your screen there. So besides these 2 things and remembering the summer summits coming up, we just want to say thank you all for joining us today and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.